I would like to ask your attention. Okay, we can start, we can proceed. Dear colleagues, good afternoon to everybody. Warm welcome to everyone. My name is Andrius KUBILIUS. I am co-president of Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, and it's my honor and pleasure now to give the floor to the chairman of the Parliament of Georgia, His Excellency Archil TALAKVADZE, for the formal opening of the 8th session of the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Dear Madam President, dear Vice President of the European Parliament, dear co-presidents of the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. I'm glad that Georgia is hosting the Euronest plenary session, first time since the establishment of this format. And I'm particularly honored to have this opportunity to address all of you here in Tbilisi. I must say, the session of Euronest is so timely and strategic to us. We commemorate important events such as the 10th anniversary of the Eastern Partnership Initiative and the entering into force of the Lisbon Treaty. At the same time, we think of our future concrete steps that will make our aspirations a reality. This is the right time to consolidate achievements, reassure our commitments, and look forward with courage and determination. Dear friends, last week, new European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen rightly underlined that Europe is not just a treasure we inherit. Europe is a promise. Europe is future. Europe is something that we all have to build, brick by brick, day by day. Indeed, we should not take the Pax Europea for granted. We approach Europe with this spirit and provide our shared contribution to its protection. This is demonstrated in our engagement in the common security and defense policy missions and our improved cooperation with the law enforcement bodies of the European Union, to name a few. However, the most important contribution is our firm dedication to the values and the principles that Europe holds dear. In this regard, you are well aware of Georgia's constitutional reform of 2018 that, as the Venice Commission assessed, completes the evolution of Georgia's political system towards a parliamentary system and constitutes a positive step towards the consideration and improvement of the country's constitutional order, based on principles of democracy, the rule of law, and the protection of fundamental rights. This constitution solidified the strong popular support of European and Euro-Atlantic integration, and now clearly states that integration into the European Union and the NATO are Georgia's top foreign policy priorities. The follow-up new rules of procedure of the Parliament unprecedentedly strengthened the parliamentary oversight, updated and simplified the lawmaking process, and increased the Parliament's capability to bring the executives accountable before the Parliament. Statistics show it all. Ministerial and prime ministerial hearings and thematic inquiries became normal occasions. There is no single sector of government, including defense and security, which does not go through the parliamentary scrutiny. The newly established Parliamentary Research Center will also further strengthen policymaking and oversight of Georgia's parliament. 1 year ago, the Parliament of Georgia made landmark decision to shift to the fully proportional election model from the existing one in 2024. None of the administration or a political party in a rule afforded such decision in the past. Regrettably, the Parliament of Georgia recently fell short to change the date for proportional elections, making it earlier in 2020. Nevertheless, we stay optimistic because of two reasons. First, we have ongoing dialogue with political opposition to prepare for 2020 elections. And second, we are working on the OSCE ODIHR recommendations that provides a chance to improve the electoral rules from campaign financing to access media, and from election management to increased engagement of women in politics. And let me convey my special gratitude to all stakeholders, civil society and the opposition and partners of Georgia for their effort and productive involvement and inputs. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we adopted the 2019-2020 Action Plan of the implementation of the Association Agreement. It defines strategic goals, objectives, and activities in three key dimensions: lawmaking process, oversight of the implementation of the Association Agreement, and awareness-raising campaign on the European Union integration. And Georgia's European and Euro-Atlantic aspirations and the country's decision has very high support among public. The action plan is an effective tool for the Parliament and its bodies to act in close coordination and cooperation in areas of immense interest for our citizens, from food safety to public health to environmental protection to transport and other important dimensions. This document is another step towards successful implementation of the Association Agreement, which we reckon as a key to our better future. It will ultimately ensure more peaceful, stable, and prosperous country for our children, for the new generations of this country. This is exactly what the heroes of the April 9 were fighting for 30 years ago on this very Rustaveli Avenue. Therefore, we take this process extremely seriously and look for continued inclusive and productive engagement of all stakeholders. Dear friends, Georgia stays committed to contributing to a stronger and ambitious Eastern Partnership. For the past 10 years, the Eastern Partnership provided an effective framework and opportunity which helped to reduce the distance between Georgia and the European Union and put in place an ambitious bilateral agenda we stand committed to implement. Georgia is very different from what it was 10 years ago, and you observe this change with your own eyes today. We are strategic partners. We need to see the next 10 years similarly dynamic and ambitious with the Eastern Partnership, with a clear strategic vision and attractive milestones. Given the extremely turbulent times and increasing geopolitical competition, it is essential that the EU maintains the Eastern European neighborhood and its geopolitical interests in order to promote the regional stability and to boost democratic development in this region. We are glad that the new European Commission has announced as a geostrategic commission. We'll be working closely with the new Commission and would like to see the European Parliament as our friend, partner, and supporter in this difficult process. At the same time, we believe that cooperation among the Eastern Partnership countries is crucial. The Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova Inter-Parliamentary Assembly was established taking into account our common interests in European and Euro-Atlantic integration, as well as the challenges that we face due to and as a result of the Russian Federation's aggression and its occupation of parts of our country's territories. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud of our achievements and grateful for your support and engagement, and we value this cooperation so much. Nevertheless, we fully understand that democratic consolidation and economic development is always a work in progress. Indeed, challenges remain. Indeed, we have to face those challenges and find solutions to the challenges. And we are ready to work with interested parties to jointly overcome these challenges for the benefit of our citizens. And our efforts are further hampered by continued Russian occupation of our lands and its destructive and aggressive activities. Russia tries to undermine Georgia's achievements. More we deliver, more aggressive approach we get, though we keep very pragmatic, very responsible of our international commitments, peace and security. And we are sure through the consolidation of our democracy, strengthening and boosting our economy, and solidifying cooperation with our partners, we will overcome this challenge as well. The latest victim of the Russian occupation is Dr. Vaja Gaprindashvili, still under illegal arrest in Tskhinvali prison for his attempt to provide medical assistance to one of the persons in need in the occupied region. That again and again demonstrates what an approach Russian Federation and de facto government of both regions have towards human rights, towards values we all share and protect. This is unacceptable, not only from political, but first of all, moral and human perspective. This must end. And finally, allow me to finish by expressing my gratitude to the European Union and its member states, which have been backing us on our institutional and democratic transformation since the very days of our regained independence. We have come a long way until now, and we are determined to stay resolute in our efforts for peaceful and prosperous future. Thank you so much, and enjoy your stay in Georgia.
Well, thanks a lot, Mr. Speaker, really for your encouraging words, both for Euronest and for Georgia. And now it's my pleasure and pleasure for all of us to welcome the President of Georgia at our Assembly session. It's an honor, Madam President, to hear your address to the Assembly. So, please, Her Excellency, Madam Salome ZOURABICHVILI, President of Georgia.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman of the Parliament of Georgia, Mrs. Vice President of the European Parliament, Mr. Co-Chairs of the Parliamentary Assembly, members of parliaments, distinguished guests. It is my honor today to welcome here the 8th plenary session of the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly in Georgia, and in Georgia for the very first time. We're indeed celebrating 10 years of Eastern Partnership, and we can probably never enough thank, first of all, our Swedish and Polish partners for an initiative that has been incredibly successful, but also the European Union and the Parliament here represented for allowing us to go through this path that has led us and brought us much closer to the European Union, much closer both politically, institutionally, economically, much closer in terms of our societies, our cultures. It has consolidated our democratic development, our stability. We are now enjoying visa-free regime, the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, and last but not least, we have become associate members, which allows us to associate ourselves to major foreign political decisions of the EU, to feel ourselves part of a large community that is sharing identical values and aspirations. It is this sense of belonging and of commitment, of solidarity, which drive us to take our share when it comes to responding to security challenges, whether it is in the framework of NATO peace missions, peacekeeping missions, or EU peacekeeping missions. But for the same reason, and because the path to more democracy, more stability, more prosperity has to be consolidated every day, because the efforts have to be reinforced when reaching the more challenging stages of reform in the judicial, political, or economic field, we need to look at a clear and bright future. We need a clear perspective. I don't think that we have to wait 10 other years. At least that is my personal intuition and conviction. We have to, and that when we say we, that means in the first place our citizens need to look at the next stages to be achieved, the next instruments that will serve these stages, the next steps to be taken toward the only ultimate goal, that of integration. And for that, we cannot only repeat that we are happy of the success that we've had, we have to start thinking outside the box. We have to find new ways, we have to find new instruments, and we have to make more efforts. Our goal is set in clear terms in our new constitution, and that is the document that I'm in charge of defending and guaranteeing. That goal is without alternative for Georgia. Without alternative neither for the authorities of this country, nor for its population that is immune until today, and I hope for a very long time, to the wave of Euroscepticism. European Union is where Georgians recognize their values, know they have their roots, share the culture, and see their future. That is not to say there are not challenges. There are challenges facing the European Union itself that we understand very well. There are both internal and external challenges, and we are convinced, because that was the case during all the crises that the European Union went through, that they will face these challenges and overcome them with lots of imagination and forward-looking perspectives. We, of course, share these challenges that today are the common to all countries of the civilized world. The gravest internal challenge, and Georgia is not the only one in that, is the polarization of the society. I am trying to combat this polarization since my intronization. We have to combat the polarization, all of us, the different political parties, the society itself, the media, and of course the authorities of the countries. We have to overcome the polarization because no society that is so divided and antagonistic can find the resources to overcome the other challenges of today's world, whether they are economic, whether they are political. And in our case, no society that is so utterly divided can overcome its main existential challenge, that of the occupation of part of our territory by the Russian forces. A divided society cannot solve the issue of occupation, nor can it get the necessary full support of its partners. A divided society cannot engage in the necessary search of a political solution that can only be reached through political dialogue. Dialogue within the society, between the political forces, as well as dialogue with all relevant actors of the conflicts, is an absolute necessity. Raising the level of the existing formats to deal with and negotiate the solutions to a conflict to a political one is without alternative. As it is shown today with the situation of Dr. Vassilis, which was already mentioned, nothing, not even such a shocking humanitarian case when a doctor is arrested and detained when doing his medical duty for no other reason than to practice medicine without borders or without any delimitation or administrative lines, neither the Geneva nor the IPRD formats are an adequate answer and have been able to provide an answer because they remain still at a very bureaucratic level. Partnership also means that we have to look for more political solutions involving EU political levels to discuss and solve issues that, if they are left the way they are, they create grounds for possible escalation. And since our stability is essential for Georgia, for the region as a whole, as well as for Europe, no one needs either escalation nor additional spots of tension in a world already in turmoil. We have all to design more effective ways to overcome the Russian occupation. We have to give the citizens living in Georgia, and that means including the occupied territories, access to equal rights and the possibility to benefit of the 4 essential freedoms that are the symbols of the European Union. And last but not least, I could not conclude my speech here today without presenting you with a request. That is the request I've presented to all international organizations I've been writing to in the past weeks. And I want today, on the 9th of December, 1 month after the arrest of Dr. Gaprinashvili, to urge this assembly, gathered here in Tbilisi, to join the many humanitarian appeals that have been made in support of Dr. Vaja Gaprindashvili's immediate release. And I'm confident that my plea will be heard by you here present, and hopefully by those who have to take the one and only sensible decision, that of release. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a very successful deliberation. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Madam President, for your enlightening speech. And colleagues know that we have in our agenda also an appeal for release of doctor who is detained now illegally. So we shall have that discussion later on. So now it's turned for Mrs. Klára Dobrev, Vice President of the European Parliament, and Klára, thanks for being with us together. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear President, dear Speaker, dear co-presidents, colleagues, friends, it's an honor for me to address you on behalf of President Sassoli, President of European Parliament, on our 8th plenary session. I thank Your Excellencies for organizing this event here in Tbilisi, and I'm absolutely sure that this shows a strong commitment of Georgia towards the European Union and the Euronest program. This commitment is well noticed and really appreciated. Well, our current meeting takes place at a time which is anything but not easy. Not easy for Georgia, definitely, we have heard, but not easy for Moldova, or not easy for Ukraine. I can go on. And to tell you the truth, it's definitely not easy for the European Union either. But on the other hand, we should recall, were there any easy times in the past history? Have you ever heard about a politician saying, "Oh, come on, these are now easy times to work, easy times to be a politician"? Can you recall something like that in the history? I don't think so. But the thing what we have to pay attention, even if we got used to difficult times, is what the President told in her speech, that what you really can feel that politics, again, I must say, because it happened in the history before, is getting more polarized. The feeling of an ordinary person, or in many, is that the things are black and white, good and bad. And whoever stands on the one side, it must be good and the other one must be bad. And I don't think it ends good. At least that's what history taught us. Because life is never black and white or good and bad. I don't want to be very philosophical here, but if I say life is complex, I think you would agree. An ordinary person or an individual has to take complex decisions in his or her life. And these decisions became even more complex when you are representing millions of people, or in European example, hundreds of millions of people. Which means that if decisions are complex, then solutions and answers are complex as well. And of course, they were always, and they are always in politics, people who say, "I have the knowledge, just vote for me and everything is going to be all right. Don't worry, be happy," or whatever. But it's never true. And what we have learned from history, that all problems, complex problems, can be solved together through dialogues, conversation, compromises. Well, I must say, no political party represents a nation alone. No one. Political parties together do. And then itself, this fact itself calls for discussions and compromises. You know, once a Hungarian politician told me when entering politics that you always have to have here in your mind that in democracy, no power lasts. The end of a democratic politician is always defeat, either by its own party, by the opposition, by age, by health, whatever. And you always have to be aware that what you are doing is not endless. So it means that the way the government treats its opposition is the way how the opposition will treat its opposition when it comes to government, but it's true for the opposite as well. The way opposition is using its tools in order to show its political opinion is the way and gives example to future oppositions. That's democracy. And that's why we do have responsibilities when we are in government and when we are in opposition as well, in all countries. In all countries, in the partnership, in the enlargement process, and within the European Union as well. So what can else be told? Discussion, compromises, and a lot of talks. And you know, I think that's the success story behind the history of the European Union. 70 years of discussion, talks, compromises meant 70 years of peace for the first time in the history of the European Union. And I can tell you, sometimes it's boring. It's annoying, really. Sometimes you get fed up with the talks again and again. But there is no other way. No other way. That's the only way how we can build our strong Europe together. That's our European way. That's the way how we can, from the beginning, from 6, 10, 15, 22, 28, and hopefully 30, 35 nations, how we can build a strong Europe. Because this brings me to another topic, that our European future does not end somewhere on the border of Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania. We are Europe, here in this room as well. And we will not stop this enlargement process and partnership process. We will not stop the reunification of the European Union and Europe. And whatever you have heard in the past few months, some skeptical words from any politician, even some president of the European Union country, the enlargement process will not stop. And you know why? It's not simply because this is our common future. This is not simply because we all are Europeans. It will not stop because in the last 70 years, every step of the enlargement brought Europe more strength and more power. Every single step. And of course, there are some skeptics. Well, to enlarge a family, it's always a challenge as well. Because every nation brought his or her own culture or political culture. And it's not always easy to maintain a unity, not even in a family. Well, you know, I'm in an age when I'm slowly getting a mother-in-law. So I think I have to experience on my own how difficult it is to enlarge a family, to have new people coming in, and somehow to maintain this kind of unity and harmony within the family. And the same goes for the European Union. The same goes for nations as well. So I can assure you, whatever you have heard in the past months, that the huge majority of European people is pro-European and for the reunification. The huge majority of the European institution is for the reunification of Europe. And I am certainly sure that a huge majority of the European Parliament wants enlargement process and much more stronger partnership process, and we are going to fight for it until the end, that's for sure. Because that's what we started here with you together 10 years ago, when we gathered together to have a strategic and ambitious partnership. 10 years ago, when we decided to make an even more closer Europe. And this year, when we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Eastern Partnership, we can be proud of our achievements, and we have a hell of a lot of work to do in front of us. We can be proud because we signed 3 association agreements with Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. And we initiated a comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement with Armenia. And we have finally launched negotiations on a new agreement with Azerbaijan. And we have integrated Belarus in our Inter-Parliamentary dialogue, which is an achievement as well. And if you allow me just for a few thoughts to say, what are the challenges ahead of us? Ahead of European Union and ahead of all our nations. We have been capable to promote economic development of Europe at large. Especially after the crisis, the economic growth in Europe is robust. But, and I always will tell you a but, because we can never lean back, we always have new challenges. But, we have faced new problems. We have faced increasing inequality. We have faced social injustice. So I'm definitely sure that in the next few years, our common goal is to tackle this problem, to fight for social Europe and to fight for more inclusive Europe. We have strengthened our democratic institutions in the past 10 years. But, again a but we can never stop to safeguard our rule of law, good governance, and we can never stop fighting against corruption, which is killing our societies. We thought we are doing a lot for energy efficiency and environment. We have spent a lot of money. We have invested a lot. But we had to realize that it was not enough. We had to realize that what we are doing is absolutely a minimum or even less. So I'm very proud that last week, the European Parliament adopted the climate crisis resolution, and that this week the Commission is going to present, I really hope, a robust and ambitious new Green Deal, because that's again our common task in the next few years. And of course, we have fought for human rights, to protect minorities, to protect our security, and we are facing new and new challenges. You've talked about Russian challenge. We have to face it together. And all those issues that I've been talking about in the past few minutes, they are only issues what we can face together. Not only the countries of the European Union, but all European countries. And that's one of the reasons why the Euronest program and the Euronest Assembly is so important. Because this is the only way how we can improve the life quality of our citizens. And to tell you the truth, the ultimate reason to become a politician, I hope for all of us, is that we can really make better life for our voters, for our citizens. And now the new European Union is entering in a new phase with new institutions, new Commission. And I really think that it's strongly committed to strengthening and developing the Eastern Partnership. Our President of the Parliament, David Sassoli, said clearly that Eastern Partnership is one of his top priorities, and it will remain. And for us, sitting here, it's an institutional, no, not only institutional, it's a personal responsibility as well, to show and to represent those who are not here, to show them our commitment to an ever closer partnership. Whether you are coming from the western or the eastern part of Europe, we are in the same continent, we share the same history, and we should share the same future as well. So the debate today is of utmost importance. It will not end here, because there are many people in the European Union who are really devoted to the Eastern Partnership. So please discuss, please make compromises, please challenge each other's opinion, because next year, in spring 2020, there will be the Eastern Partnership Summit, and we have to come with new initiatives how to develop further our cooperation. So what can I say as final words? As I told you, please challenge each other's opinion. Difference is an opinion. Difference in opinions is the strength of democracy. We should not be afraid of differences. We should be afraid of not making compromises at the end. So what I can wish you is talks, discussions, compromises, instead of annunciations and revelations. That's what will bring us closer to the Europe, what we all work for and not only dream for. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Madam Vice President. Really, you made a very inspiring statement, especially about enlargement, and you made perhaps our job much easier here. You know, so thanks a lot. Appreciate very much. And dear colleagues, unfortunately, Madam President and Mr. Speaker need to leave us. So therefore, we need a few minutes technical break in order to provide our honorable guests and in order for services to reorder the room. So now I announce the break. So, dear colleagues, let us continue our work. Now, official and formal part is over. We can be a little bit more informal, serious but informal. And I will try to say for the beginning few words. You know, first of all, really, for me, it's a big honor and pleasure and privilege on those days to preside together with Ivan KRULKO our Euronest session work. Especially yesterday for me, it was an important day. Those who you know, it's quite a coincidence, a good coincidence for me personally, so I'm very happy really that we have this session here in Tbilisi. I'm very happy to lead the whole assembly proceedings with Ivan KRULKO, who represents Ukrainian Parliament. I am from European Parliament, but also from Lithuania. We are, you know, new in this, you know, responsibility. Not new in politics, but new in this responsibility. So if you will make, if we shall make mistakes, or you will make mistakes, let's apologize in advance each other, you know. And really, Euronest is, from my point of view, is a very important institution. It's most important parliamentary institution in Eastern Partnership policy. You know, I will not speak very long in what Eastern Partnership means. Thanks to Madam Vice President Klára DOBREV, she explained very well, so I will skip all my notes which I wrote before about what was achieved during those 10 years. There is no need to repeat, but I will say my personal views. Really, you know, we need to understand that Eastern Partnership policy is almost the only instrument which we have in the European Union, on the European continent, in the West, in the whole continent, really to reach implementation of very ambitious vision, which was best described by very clear statement: Europe whole, free, and at peace. That's our ambition and vision. And that is where, you know, Euronest, Eastern Partnership policy, and Euronest was playing, is playing, and will play a very important role. That is why our gathering really is so important, so valuable, and I hope that we shall have really very fruitful discussions. Of course, you know, to have Euronest session in Georgia, in Tbilisi, it's some kind of special privilege. So I am very, very grateful to, you know, our Georgian friends for hospitality. I don't know if I will say a secret. I was convincing members of European Parliament, you know, to come here with very simple, you know, message. You should, you know, enjoy Georgian hospitality. It's not so easy to survive through that hospitality, but really, it's always a pleasure. So, and thanks for not only for hospitality, but for all the job which you did for us to be here, especially during not an easy times for Georgia itself. So, really this year is very important. We are celebrating 10 years anniversary of Eastern Partnership. Eastern Partnership, as I said, for me it looks like really very important, if I would not say most important, you know, geopolitical agenda for European continent, because success of Eastern Partnership countries really is big step forward towards, you know, having this vision of Europe, whole, free, and at peace to be implemented. I'm always repeating, you know, that success of Ukraine, success of Georgia, of Moldova, of other Eastern Partnership countries, at the end would be very good example to ordinary Russian citizens to ask very simple questions to their, you know, leaders, political leaders, why, you know, Ukraine is becoming successful, democratic and successful country, and Russia is still struggling, you know, without proper democracy. So, in some way, Eastern Partnership success is also an instrument how to assist Russia to achieve some kind of transformation back to more democratic development. So, when we are talking about Eastern Partnership, we need to see two sides. It's real partnership. On one side, there are, Eastern Partnership countries like Georgia itself, which need to make reforms. And our experience from Central Europe, from Baltic states is very simple. Only European type of reforms are bringing success for the country. That's what we can, prove with all our experience during the last 30 years. But from another side, in order for those countries which suffered during, Soviet period and so on, in order for those countries, for our countries to become successful, to reform ourselves, very important was also partnership with the EU. EU policy to enlarge, to open the doors for integration, for partnership, is absolute prerequisite for, at this time, Eastern Partnership countries to reform themselves and to become successful countries. There is no single example that any country from post-Soviet territory, after Berlin Wall collapsed, was able to make itself a successful country without really, EU policy of enlargement, EU policy of integration. So that's what we need to have in mind. When we're talking about, our wish to assist Ukraine, to assist Georgia, to assist, Moldova with their, successful development, we need to understand that not only those countries need to make reforms, but also we need to make our steps forward from EU side. So next 10 years, at least how I understand the whole picture of possible developments, it looks for me that next 10 years will be crucially and strategically very important for, development of Eastern Partnership policy and for building of success in this region. And what we shall need to do on our side, of course, countries like Georgia and Ukraine will need to reform themselves, but on our side, we shall need also to look into how to modernize, how to upgrade Eastern Partnership policy, how to make clear differentiation, which we were talking all the time, more for more, but what we also are adding now, more for more, but less for less. If the country is starting to backslide, that would be also, in some way, it should have consequence on our side, and that is why, we were talking yesterday about so-called trio process, trio strategy for those advanced countries, but we need to understand that it does not mean that we shall forget Armenia with its achievements, that we shall forget, Azerbaijan or even Belarus with all its problems. Those countries will have also some kind of individual approach, and we hope that success of trio countries will inspire those countries also to move ahead. Being here in Tbilisi, perhaps, all of us, we were participating not only in Euronest, activities, but also in some kind of local dialogue, political dialogue, very important one. And here, really, we need to, what's my very simple message is that we need to understand, and especially countries, of Eastern Partnership region, those who are making good progress, trio countries, all of us, we need to understand that association agreement, free trade agreement are, of course, very important, and their implementation is very important. But besides that, there are Copenhagen criteria adopted back in 1993, which was for us very clear signal that we can, that there is a possibility for us to become members of EU. But Copenhagen criteria about democracy, about rule of law and human rights. And that is the basic prerequisite for all the countries who wish to integrate closer to EU, to move ahead with their, steps forward. We cannot forget about issues and challenges of democracy, and especially when we are now. From our own experience, I would say in a very simple way, among Copenhagen criteria, there is one which is not written, but which I know from our own experience. I was 2 times Prime Minister. And my experience is very simple. One of the most difficult things which new democracies need to learn, how being in the government you need to be ready to lose elections and to accept that you lost election. I can say from my own experience, this is not a very happy moment when you lose elections, but you can survive. You can survive. I lost elections back in 2000 with my party, very heavily. It took us 8 years to recover. Then we won elections again. Unfortunately, exactly 1 month after Lehman Brothers collapsed in America, and we got the challenge to fight the deep crisis. But that is democracy. And that is what I'm trying to speak here, being in Tbilisi, that, all of us, we need to understand what does it mean to learn lessons of democracy, to learn lessons by doing, and really, like Madam Vice President have said, dialogue and compromise is essence of democracy. So I will not continue, but we need to understand in a very simple way. I will conclude saying that here in Euronest, we are a family, united family. All your successes and failures are failures and successes of the whole family. And we need to be very open in the family. That's our task. That's our job. And I hope that we can be really very successful, not only during this session, but also during the next 10 years, with Eastern Partnership policy becoming really an effective tool for countries of Eastern Partnership region, especially those 3 advanced countries, moving ahead with high speed, closer towards EU. And what we were speaking late last night in a very hospital, very nice dinner, I am pretty sure that I will see some of you, younger maybe than me, during my lifetime when you will become members of European Parliament. Good luck. And now I will give the floor to my dear colleague, dear friend, Ivan KRULKO, co-president of Euronest, representing also Ukrainian Parliament.
Dear Vice President of European Parliament, Mrs. Dobrev, dear Co-President of Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, Mr. KUBILIUS, dear members of European Parliament and members of national parliaments, dear colleagues, it's a privilege to me to be here in Tbilisi and to have a speech during the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly. First of all, I would like to express our gratitude to the Parliament of Georgia for your warm hospitality and excellent organization of this session. You all know that this year, in May 2019, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of Eastern Partnership Initiative. These were not simple years in terms of challenges, neither for Eastern partners nor for the European Union. For the Eastern partners, the hardest challenge is undoubtedly security. Sad but fact, Ukraine, along with some other Eastern partners, become the victim of Russian military aggression. First it was Moldova, then Georgia, and in 2014 it was my country, Ukraine. Having bluntly violated international law, Russia firstly occupied Ukrainian Crimea and annexed Crimea, and then part of Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast in the eastern part of Ukraine. It goes without saying a word that Russia's aggressive policy on the eastern borders of the EU poses a significant threat to the European security. Therefore, it is our common pain and challenge to be tackled. Today, it is a very important day for Ukraine. Now in Paris, the Normandy format is taking place. We do hope that these negotiations will be successful for Ukraine. Since 2014, my country stressed from Russia aggression. We know what the war means. That is why we know how valuable the peace is. And we count on our Western partners, and we support President Zelensky in this difficult negotiation process based on national interest of Ukraine and based on truth. And what does it mean, truth? Truth is that Ukraine doesn't have civil conflict, as Russia claims. Ukraine is a victim of Russian aggression. The way to real peace is control over Ukraine and Russia border by Ukrainian authorities and withdrawal of Russian troops from Donbass. And of course, the occupation of Crimea. Only when the security terms are fulfilled in the Donbass, the political process is possible. The EU, since recent years, is also faces enormous challenges such as migration, terrorism, hybrid threats, anti-EU propaganda, rise of populism, and Euroscepticism. However, in spite of all these numerous hardships we are overcoming during the last 10 years, the EU and Eastern partners have accomplished a lot together. The main achievement are the association agreements with Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, and the entry into force to the free visa regimes with relevant partners. Armenia and Azerbaijan as well opened new pages in their relations with the European Union. That is actually what paved the way towards reform and provided impetus to economic, social, and regional development of our countries. The EU has become the biggest trade partner for Ukraine, and trade volumes are steadily growing. Now we have to move on with a common vision of the Eastern Partnership after 2020. The EU should keep the political importance to the Eastern Partnership initiative, ensure a forward-looking approach by setting the strategic vision for the future of Eastern Partnership, and to reflect dynamics responding to the needs, expectations, and interests of partners. Associated agreements with Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine should not constitute the final goal in their relations with the European Union. On this account, Eastern Partnership Plus format should be developed future to respond to the needs and expectations of our countries. The other solution might be proposal of co-president Mr. Kubilius to establish a new trio strategy, which should serve as a concrete roadmap towards more focused cooperation on deepening sectoral and economic integration in the priority sectors: energy market, digital economy, custom cooperation, justice and home affairs, participations in different projects, and be oriented on delivering practical results for the citizens of Eastern Partnership countries. The EU should show its readiness to keep its doors open for any European state to join the Union, because the enlargement is one of key pillars of Union's foreign policy and powerful tool to inspire and promote change and transformation in EU-European neighborhood. The open door policy should be applied to those states that fully fulfill the relevant criteria. It is also important to foresee necessary resources for the engagement of Eastern partners. It is important to say that the Euronest Assembly will continue to bring added value by providing a sustained framework for inter-parliamentary cooperation. Thank you for your attention, and I wish us a successful session.
It's your turn. Now it's pleasure for me to give the role of presiding the whole plenary session to Ivan KRULKO, please.
Thank you, dear Co-President Mr. Kubilius. So, dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Karl Hartzell, head of the EU delegation to Georgia, on behalf of the High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Vice President of the European Commission, to address the session.
Madam Vice President of the European Parliament, dear co-presidents of the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, honorable parliamentarians, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to address the 8th Euronest Parliamentary Assembly meeting on behalf of the newly appointed High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Mr. Borrell. It's also a privilege to be the ambassador of the European Union to Georgia at the occasion when Tbilisi is hosting for the first time the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, and to address this distinguished audience. I see many new representatives on the European side following the parliamentary elections in the EU last May. Welcome to Georgia, and let me wish you every success during your mandate. The European Union not only has a new parliament, but also a new leadership for its executive. The new priorities set out by President von der Leyen aim at having a stronger, greener, digital, and more people-oriented EU. We embark on a new journey with new priorities, but with the same ambition, and our unwavering support to our neighbors remains. This year, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Eastern Partnership. This is a common endeavor of the member states of the European Union and their Eastern European partners. The Eastern Partnership was founded on common values, mutual interest and commitment, as well as on shared ownership and responsibility. Our strategic partnership has matured and evolved through the years, with achievements such as our association agreements, including the deep and comprehensive free trade areas, a comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement, visa facilitation and readmission agreements, and visa liberalisation, which are today the cornerstones of our relations and cooperations with most partners. Over the years, the Eastern Partnership has proved able to adapt to new circumstances and take on new challenges. The November 2017 summit marked a new approach of our close partnership through the adoption of the 20 deliverables for 2020, setting jointly agreed goals for ongoing reforms. This ambitious work plan is based on a more focused, deeper, and broader scope of our commitments for the direct benefit of our citizens. Moreover, it contributes to the overall goal of increasing the stability and resilience of our neighbors as stipulated by the EU Global Strategy and the European Neighbourhood Policy Review. It also supports delivery of key global policy goals as set by the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. The Euronest Parliamentary Assembly plays a key role in this joint endeavour, providing a sustained platform and framework for interparliamentary cooperation and giving an indispensable democratic legitimacy to the Eastern Partnership. The resolutions you adopt jointly are key contributions to shaping the debate on this policy. Looking to the immediate future, the next Eastern Partnership Summit is just around the corner. As you know, in the context of the 10th anniversary of the Eastern Partnership, and in view of the next summit, the European Union launched a structured consultation process on the post-2020 Eastern Partnership agenda that will further shape the future of our policy. We have received over 200 contributions from a very broad cross-section of stakeholders from the EU, member states and partner countries, including various levels of government, civil society, think tanks, the private sector, as well as international actors. From these consultations and from these contributions, we believe that we can already draw some conclusions. First, there is a strong consensus that the current policy framework, the model of 20 deliverables for 2020, is a good basis on which to build on. The partnership's jointly owned and results-oriented reform agenda seems to be widely appreciated by both member states and partner countries and across a range of stakeholders. These deliverables give more emphasis to priorities such as non-discrimination, engagement with civil society, and strengthening strategic communications. There also remains a broad consensus that we need to keep delivering on stronger economies, stronger connectivity, and stronger society. There's also recognition that challenges persist in the field of governance and that appropriate ways need to be identified to develop the work on the rule of law, the fight against corruption, and the role of independent media and of the judiciary. This is also what societies are asking for. Respect for the rule of law is a fundamental value underpinning all our cooperation in the Eastern Partnership. We all have a joint interest to ensure the Eastern Partnership remains solid and relevant, striking the right balance between inclusivity and differentiation while remaining loyal to its core values. We know that the ambitions are different, and indeed, last week, 3 partners, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, stressed their determination to cooperate closely on European integration in a joint statement addressed to the High Representative Vice President Borrell. Further reflection on the proposals made will be needed, but I can already say that we recognize the merits of differentiation in building relations with our partner countries. In the last Eastern Partnership Summit declaration, it's very clearly stated that we should continue the cooperation with the 3 associated countries on deepening AA-DCFTA reforms. At the same time, we believe that the inclusive nature of the Eastern Partnership also needs nurturing, as it has been an integral part of our success so far. Hence, a continued need to bring all partners together, work jointly in order to achieve reforms and deliver to the citizens of the whole region, and to foster ties, trade and cooperation, not only between the EU and partner countries, but also between the partners themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, since the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly is taking place here in Georgia for the first time, as the ambassador to Georgia, allow me to please say a few words about EU-Georgia relations. The EU and Georgia are working hand in hand towards a very ambitious relationship. This year marked the 5th anniversary since the signature of the EU-Georgia Association Agreement. We have a deep and comprehensive free trade area and a visa-free regime in place. We will start soon the discussions on the new association agenda, which will help shape our common ambitions for the coming years, and we are backing up our common political ambitions with a very strong assistance package. Georgia has continued to make determined progress on a broad range of reforms, making the most of the potential of this agreement. And I believe I can comfortably say that our cooperation is starting to bring tangible results. Since 2017, more than 500,000 Georgian citizens have benefited from visa-free travel to the Schengen area. The number of Georgian companies exporting to the EU has increased by 34% over the past 4 years. The overall pace of adopting the rules and standards set by the association agreement has increased, bit by bit, making a positive difference in ordinary people's lives. And Georgia participates to a growing number of EU programs such as Horizon 2020, Creative Europe, and Erasmus+, not least, where Georgia ranks among the top 10 beneficiaries globally. Ambitions are high, and so are our expectations. The Georgian Parliament has on its agenda core issues that will determine Georgia's democratic consolidation, a sound and meaningful electoral reform, especially in view of the 2020 parliamentary elections, and a fair and merit-based appointment of judges to the Supreme Court are key for the fulfillment of Georgia's democratic commitments. Delivering on commitments is important for the European Union, and it's even more important for the citizens of Georgia. Let me add a personal note with regard to the current situation. I am very pleased, and I salute both the ruling party and the members of the opposition who have engaged in a dialogue process where we had the second meeting yesterday, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to move step by step on this dialogue to make further progress in a joined-up way. Ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't like to finish my speech without referring to the raison d'être of the EU and the Eastern Partnership, the people. As former High Representative Mogherini said in her last speech at the European Parliament just a week and a half ago, the Eastern Partnership is not against anyone, but rather for everyone. Not everyone, however, will agree that such justifications are necessary when it comes to defending the merits of our cooperation, but I think we all agree that the Eastern Partnership in the end needs to be for our people, for improving living standards, including democratic standards, and for a more peaceful European continent based on the principles of respect, partnership, and cooperation. I am confident that our work over the coming days over the coming days within the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly will provide us with further useful input as to where to set our ambitions next and how we can work better together to deliver concrete benefits to our citizens. With these words, let me wish you a very successful 8th session of the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly. Didi Madluba, as we say around here.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your speech. And I would like to give the floor for Mr. Vassilis Maragos, Head of Unit for Armenia, Azerbaijan and Eastern Partnership from the European Commission to address the session.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Vice President, co-presidents of the Parliamentary Assembly, Excellencies, dear friends. It's a honor and a pleasure to be here today and to address the session on behalf of the European Commission. And I would like to join all the previous speakers to thank our Georgian colleagues for the warm hospitality it is essential that we work together in order to achieve concrete results. A few days after the inauguration of the new European Commission, which is led by President von der Leyen, I would like to pass a very strong message of support and engagement in view of working together, but also of achieving concrete results in all our policies and bringing closer the citizens, both within the European Union, but also from the Eastern Partnership countries, through concrete action on the ground, but also through targeted communication, which is essential for the success of our work. I would like to focus on two main issues. First of all, what is the nature of our engagement in the Eastern Partnership and the results achieved so far? And second, how we expect to move forward with your help. First of all, on the Eastern Partnership, I would like to recall that this is a specific dimension of the EU neighborhood policy, which is one of the key priorities of the European Union's global strategy, which aims at the societal resilience in our East and the South, but also on supporting a rules-based international order. Let's not forget that, as President von der Leyen stressed in the presentation of the priorities of the European Commission, European leadership means working hard, hand in hand with our neighbors and our partners. In deepening our relationships, we always be guided by our values and our respect for international law. In this context, the Eastern Partnership is based on the key principles of the neighborhood policy, which are differentiation, inclusivity, and ownership. And we have to be proud of its success so far, both in its bilateral and multilateral formats, which has delivered thanks to the commitment, engagement, and ownership of all of you, of the European Union member states, of their parliaments, of their citizens, and also partner countries, citizens, and decision makers. Our differentiated relationship takes into account the specificities and the interest and the degree of ambition, as it was already mentioned, of all our partners, but also their readiness to introduce and to implement reforms on the ground. You have heard from Ambassador Archil the work that we have done together about the 20 deliverables. I would like to give you a few very concrete examples on what we have achieved. When it comes to the economy, more than 70,000 enterprises have so far received support from the Eastern Partnership. More than 6,000 projects for small and medium-sized enterprises have received direct support through almost 2 billion euros of loans, which have gone to the private sector, in particular to SMEs. We have created more than 3,000 jobs over this period, thanks to EU support. Trade flows between the European Union and the 6 partners have increased substantially over the past period, and now the whole region is the 10th, taken as a whole, is the 10th trading partner of the European Union, somewhere between Canada and India. There is still a lot to do in the area of the economy. I'm sure that the work today, but also in the working groups, can bring very concrete suggestions on how we can do it. What we have to do is, in particular, to encourage structural reforms in the economies of the countries, create new and more opportunities for investment, but also, last but not least, and I think the report we discussed yesterday at the working group on the social issues was an important and will be an important contribution to that, we need an economic development which is inclusive and does not leave anybody behind. This is essential for the resilience of the society, but also to make sure that our endeavors at the political level are also understood by the people on the ground. When it comes to our work on people-to-people contacts and social resilience, we should not forget, in particular, youth. Erasmus Plus has enabled more than 25,000 academic exchanges over these 2 years, which means equal number of projects and more than 80,000 students who have moved between the Eastern Partnership and the European Union. But we also invested in young people's skills. We continue to do so also in each country. and we are focusing a lot on entrepreneurship and employability. This is a very good basis to continue engaging, and further support to education and employment will have to be an essential element of our cooperation in the future. In the area of connectivity, I would like to mention in particular the indicative investment plan, which identifies for the extension of the TEN-T, the Trans-European Networks for Transport, which identifies priority investments for more than 5,000 kilometers of roads, but also rails, ports, logistical centers. And I would like also to stress the strong record that we have achieved together in the area of the energy efficiency and energy resilience. We have now to build on this in order to accelerate investments in these areas, make them sustainable, and link the new Green Deal with those investments. We should also improve conditions for investment in circular economy, which is the future of our economies, and as well enable more municipal investment, in particular in the area of energy, sustainable energy, as well as in renewables with the support of the private sector. However, when it comes to governance, as the ambassador has mentioned, we still do not see the results which are expected by the citizens. So we have to do more. We are expected to do more, and the governments in your countries are expected to do more when it comes to judiciary reform, to anti-corruption, and this will be an essential element of our work in the future. I would like to finish about the past with a word on communication. In the past period, we have seen a clear improvement in the perception, the knowledge, but also the image of the European Union in all the partner countries. As an example, I would like to give some figures from our polls in Georgia, where actually 80% of Georgians feel that the relations with the European Union are good. 71% of the people of Georgia trust the European Union. This has been a constant trust over the past few years. And 50% of Georgians have a positive image of the European Union. Actually, only 4% of Georgians have a negative image of the European Union. I would like to see similar figures also within the EU. 74% of Georgians are aware of the EU's financial support, and 62% consider that this support is effective. The figures are comparable in all other countries, with 67% of the respondents in all these countries feeling that the relations between their country and the EU are good, and 52% of Eastern Partner citizens having a positive image of the European Union. This is a clear increase of almost 7 to 8% from the baseline of 2016. But also, it is important to say that the negative opinions in no country are more than 10%. We are also cooperating on rebranding the EU assistance. I'm sure that those of you who are in Georgia know this very well, with our EU4 branding, EU for Energy, EU for Youth, EU for Georgia. But this is not enough. It is essential that this is accompanied by renewed efforts, more strategic communication, media literacy, professionalism in media, but also respect to fundamental freedoms and space for the civil society. My second main point is about the future. To further strengthen our partnership, we have been given a clear mandate by the European Council, and we will present a new vision in 2020 in view of the next summit, which will be discussed, which will be organized during the Croatian presidency of the Council of the European Union. The main priorities identified in the mission letter of the new Commissioner for Neighborhood and Enlargement, Mr. Oliver Vassilis, cover both the new set of long-term policy objectives for the Eastern Partnership, reflecting the political and economic choices of our partners, of course, but also building on the current obligations. And then, second, the focus on those outstanding issues, in particular with emphasizing the rule of law, the fight against corruption, and the role of an independent media and civil society. We need to work in parallel, taking also into account the results of the consultation, which were mentioned by Ambassador Archil. The mission letter of the Commissioner covers also the acceleration of the implementation of association agreements and deep and comprehensive free trade areas with Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, and deepening sectoral cooperation with them. This will be an important element of our priorities. Let me recall that these agreements cover more than 70% of the acquis. But also I would like to recall that we have a bilateral framework of cooperation with the other three countries. The comprehensive enhanced partnership agreement with Armenia is also guiding us through for an ambitious reform process, notably in the non-trade areas and in rule of law. We also looking forward to the completion of negotiations for an ambitious agreement with Azerbaijan, which will also hopefully be conducive to reforms, while in dialogue with Belarus, we are expecting to finalize partnership priorities and identify areas for further cooperation and reform. Thus, the inclusivity of the overall framework should not be seen as detrimental to differentiation. Every partner is different. Let me also stress the importance of strong policy dialogue, political dialogue, to make sure that we achieve lasting reform results. Here, both political will and capacity building will be essential. Moving forward, and in conclusion, we need to be ambitious as we face common challenges such as digital transformation, climate change, hybrid threats, democracy, and disinformation. Together, we need to focus more on local actions, bringing concrete benefits to people in rural areas, strengthen the role of civil society, while collectively communicate in unity and make our efforts more visible. Finally, we should meet the expectations of people when it comes to quality of health, education, and youth. This will be essential to strengthen the resilience of our societies, both on the side of the European Union, but also on the side of the partner countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm confident that today's discussions will also help steer our reflection and identify the building blocks for our future cooperation. I look forward to a frank and open exchange of views. As parliaments, you are the representatives of the people, of the citizens, and you are best placed to help ensure we deliver change, a change that really makes a difference to people's lives. You have a key role to play in shaping the future of our cooperation and our partnership, ensure that our agenda remains relevant for the people, but also ensuring that your governments deliver. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech. And now we have time for greetings addresses from the observers of the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly. 3 minutes for each of speeches, and please follow the timing. And I would like to give the floor for Mr. Istvan Komoroczki, co-chair of the EU-Georgia Civil Society Platform, representing the European Economic and Social Committee. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, dear members of the European Parliament, members of the Georgian, Armenian, Azeri, Ukrainian, and Moldovan parliaments. It's an honor for me to represent here and speak on behalf of the European Organized Civil Society, whose name is European Economic and Social Committee, and in my capacity as co-chairman of the EU-Georgia Civil Society Platform, I come here from time to time to this beautiful city. It's indeed a pleasure for us to see to what importance you, the members of the parliaments, are according to the civil society. As the history told us, the civil society indeed plays an important role in the political, democratic life of given societies, including the Eastern Partnership countries. We at the European Economic and Social Committee want to express our profound wish that this Parliamentary Assembly will succeed to keep the Eastern Partnership issue high in the agenda of the EU foreign affairs and will be given further in the future priority. We are happy that the Eastern Neighborhood issue itself is high on the external relations agenda of the Committee of our own. The association agreements with Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine gave us a mandate to establish monitoring mechanisms with the three partners. These mechanisms provide us to establish civil society platforms and domestic advisory groups, and monitor the implementation of the association agreements from the civil society perspective. We very much appreciate that the three parliamentary association committees regularly dedicate a special point in their agenda to report on activities of the civil society platforms, and we would like to see this as good practice continue in the future. Our efforts are bearing certainly some important fruits. We have been able to help and build up the capacity for civil society organizations in Eastern European neighborhood in these three countries. We managed to obtain structured, balanced, and representative counterparts organizations. We have provided a working method for dialogues and consensus. Over the past decade, the Eastern Partnership has certainly accomplished positive results on many important fronts like people-to-people contact, energy efficiency, here in Georgia, for instance, occupational safety and health issues, etc. With no doubt, this unique partnership is one of the EU's most successful foreign policy initiatives and has showed the clear and unanimous support of all 28 member states and, of course, the new European Commission, and referred to our own compatriot, Mr. Olivier Varhelyi, last week during the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum several times announced it. However, it is to add, ladies and gentlemen, that we at ESC remain to a certain extent worried about some shrinking of space for civil society and the independent media, a certain increase of corruption, and certain concern regarding the rule of law issues. And we believe indeed that joint efforts are needed to step up our efforts in these areas. Lastly, but not least, I would like to take this opportunity to emphasize that the EU's policy towards the eastern neighborhoods must not be ambiguous, as Ambassador Archil emphasized as well, as this could lead to geopolitical destabilization by other players. We are convinced that our relation should be one of equal partnership in which both sides are beneficial to each other. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your speech, and especially thank you for timing of your speech. So we have next speaker. I would like to give a floor for Mr. Tadeus Andzejevski, member of the Vilnius District Municipal Council, representing the European Committee of the Regions. Please, the floor is yours.
Będę mówił w języku polskim, więc proszę przygotować tłumaczenie. Szanowna Pani Przewodnicząca Parlamentu Europejskiego, Panowie Współprzewodniczący, Szanowni Państwo, pragnę wszystkich serdecznie pozdrowić w imieniu Przewodniczącego Komitetu Regionów Unii Europejskiej Karla Heinza Lambertsa, który niestety z powodu wcześniej ustalonych terminów nie mógł przybyć na spotkanie Euronestu do Tbilisi. Nazywam się Tadeusz Andrzejewski, jestem członkiem Komitetu Regionów, gdzie reprezentuję Litwę. Z okazji dziesięciolecia Partnerstwa Wschodniego Komitet Regionów jako organizacja reprezentująca władze lokalne i regionalne w Unii Europejskiej postanowiła przygotować z inicjatywy własnej opinię władze lokalne i regionalne kształtujące przyszłe Partnerstwo Wschodnie, by w ten sposób pokazać swój również wkład w tą ważną europejską inicjatywę. Jako autor tej opinii chciałem pokazać zarówno dziesięcioletni dorobek jej na polu reform, transformacji gospodarczo-politycznej, tudzież tworzenia społeczeństwa obywatelskiego w krajach Partnerstwa Wschodniego, ale też nakreślić perspektywę dalszego funkcjonowania na kolejne dekady. Naturalnie, że opisując w opinii te procesy, starałem się, by wkład władz lokalnych i regionalnych w założenie i cele Partnerstwa Wschodniego był widoczny i doceniany. Szykując opinię razem ze swym ekspertem odbyliśmy szereg spotkań, między innymi z przedstawicielami służby do działań zewnętrznych Komisji Europejskiej, zajmującymi się tematyką Partnerstwa Wschodniego, posłami do Parlamentu Europejskiego, z dyplomatami poszczególnych państw, ale też i z samymi zainteresowanymi, czyli przedstawicielami krajów Partnerstwa Wschodniego. Uważam, że spotkanie konferencji władz lokalnych i regionalnych Partnerstwa Wschodniego Korle-Apu w Turku 12 września bieżącego roku było szczególnie pomocne w rozpoznaniu i zrozumieniu aspiracji poszczególnych krajów Partnerstwa Wschodniego. Potem te aspiracje uwzględniliśmy również w swojej opinii. Mówienie bowiem głosem samych przedstawicieli Partnerstwa Wschodniego uważam za ważną zaletę tej opinii. W ten sposób w niej znalazł się zapis mówiący o konieczności powołania wschodnioeuropejskiej szkoły administracji publicznej w jednym z krajów partnerstwa, której zadaniem byłoby szkolenie w sposób całościowy i skoordynowany z wykorzystaniem najlepszych praktyk europejskich urzędników różnych szczebli dla krajów Partnerstwa Wschodniego. Taki był postulat KRULKO i takie są też oczekiwania naszych wschodnich partnerów, gdzie poszczególne samorządy często nie są w stanie zrealizować wspólnych unijnych projektów właśnie z braku zdolności administracyjnych. Również postulat wzmocnienia współpracy terytorialnej i transgranicznej pomiędzy państwami Partnerstwa Wschodniego, jak też na wspólnej granicy z państwami Unii Europejskiej, wypłynął z konferencji w Turku. Uwzględniliśmy go, podając w opinii konkretne zalecenia, jak można usprawnić i poszerzyć współpracę transgraniczną, wykorzystując na przykład dobre praktyki Interreg, który przecież już od 2 dekad z powodzeniem wdrażany jest na pograniczach krajów Unii Europejskiej. Doświadczenie pokazuje, że aby do współpracy transgranicznej wciągnąć możliwie najwięcej osób, instytucji, organizacji działających na pograniczach, należy organizacyjnie z większych programów wyodrębnić programy mniejsze, które potocznie zostały nazwane P2P, People to People. Takie niskonakładowe projekty muszą być maksymalnie odbiurokratyzowane, tak aby mogły nimi administrować bezpośrednio np. szkoły, szpitale, instytucje użytku publicznego, organizacje młodzieżowe itd. Model P2P sprawdził się już na pograniczu polsko-czeskim, gdzie za czas swego działania przyciągnął ponad 300 000 osób. Więc dlaczego nie wypróbować również go na przykład na pograniczach Gruzji, Armenii, Azerbejdżanu czy Ukrainy? W swojej opinii proponuję również wzmocnienie instytucjonalne samego KRULKO poprzez poszerzenie jego składu o przedstawicieli reprezentacyjnych stowarzyszeń i asocjacji samorządów lokalnych z krajów Partnerstwa Wschodniego oraz Unii Europejskiej. W ten sposób dyskusje na tym forum będą bardziej reprezentacyjne, będą odzwierciedlały szersze spektrum poglądów oraz nasi wschodni sąsiedzi będą móc zaczerpnąć pewnych doświadczeń właśnie od samorządowców z Unii Europejskiej. W pierwszym rozdziale opinii dotyczącej spraw ogólnych wzywam do zacieśnienia współpracy Unii Europejskiej z najbardziej zaangażowanymi w Partnerstwo Wschodnie krajami takimi jak Ukraina, Mołdawia i Gruzja, również poprzez poszerzenie ram prawnych. I nie chodzi mi o renegocjację umów stowarzyszeniowych, tylko o ewentualne dodatki do tych umów, na przykład w postaci aneksów, które by pozwoliły na bardziej pogłębioną współpracę tych państw z Unią. Przy czym, jak zaznaczam, proces pogłębienia współpracy powinien mieć na celu perspektywę pełnego członkostwa. I muszę przyznać, że ta opinia została przyjęta właśnie 5 grudnia na sesji plenarnej i te postulaty nie były kwestionowane przez moich kolegów z komitetu. Więc w swojej opinii również zachęcam do poszerzania współpracy sektorowej Unii również ze wszystkimi państwami Partnerstwa Wschodniego. Chodzi o zwiększenie udziału krajów Partnerstwa Wschodniego w instytucjach i agendach unijnych, o możliwość podejmowania w nich decyzji ukierunkowanych na projekty Partnerstwa Wschodniego. W ten sposób zwiększymy zaangażowanie, ale i odpowiedzialność poszczególnych krajów Partnerstwa Wschodniego. I puentując streszczenie swojej opinii, chciałbym zaakcentować, że projekt Partnerstwa Wschodniego na kolejną perspektywę jego działania musi być jeszcze bardziej ambitny i atrakcyjny dla każdej ze stron. Unii Europejskiej musi zależeć na współpracy z krajami położonymi na jej wschodnich rubieżach, by szerzyć tam procesy demokratyczne, rozwijać społeczeństwo obywatelskie, a tym samym zapewniać w krajach Partnerstwa Wschodniego stabilność i przyjazne relacje z Unią Europejską. Krajom Partnerstwa Wschodniego zaś niewątpliwie musi zależeć na dalszej transformacji gospodarczej i ustrojowej, na niezbędnych reformach, które przyniosą dobrobyt i bezpieczeństwo socjalne. Razem możemy to osiągnąć. Komitet Regionów jako organ przedstawicieli władz lokalnych i samorządowych jest gotów dalej przyczynić się do rozwoju Partnerstwa Wschodniego na szczeblu regionalnym, a więc najbliższym ludziom. Dziękuję bardzo za uwagę.
Thank you for your speech. I would like to give the floor to Inna Koseru, co-chair of Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum. And I would like just to remember that the timing of speech is maximum 3 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Deputy Speaker, dear co-chairs of the Euronest Annual Assembly, dear members of the Parliament, dear guests, allow me to thank you on behalf of the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum that we are invited here and we're able to address you with a speech. So I'm coming from the 11th Annual Assembly of the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum, where we adopted a declaration which faces the achievements that we had so far, challenges that we have and we need to tackle in the future, and on the future of the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum. We greet the three association agreements which were signed within the 10 years of Eastern Partnership Initiative. Those 7,000 SMEs which were supported by the European Union, 80,000 youth which were able to travel to EU countries within the Erasmus Plus program, and many other achievements we had within the 10 years of Eastern Partnership Initiative implemented in our countries. Still, we have challenges to face in the future, and taking into account that now we are figuring out the future of the Eastern Partnership Initiative, I would like to refer to the following. We call on the EU to continue applying stronger and more targeted pressure for further adoption and implementation of core accountability mechanisms. In the judiciary, the attention should be focused on transparent selection and promotion of judges and fair disciplinary procedures. For public officials, the key anti-corruption measures should be in place. In the field of competition of political parties, the EU should push for further adoption of legislative amendments to electoral laws and the party financing legislation in line with international standards. In order to achieve a deeper and more sustainable change in the rule of law in the EP countries and to support the citizens of EP countries in enjoying their human rights, we recommend to the EU and the EU member states to increase the financial support to individual human rights defenders and CSOs focusing on human rights. We propose to support the regional collaboration and cooperation of women human rights defenders working for the same goal in the various countries as a viable strategy for the successful elimination of violence against women. We call on the EU member states to adopt the EU Magnitsky Act and apply it against individuals in EP countries who are guilty of human rights abuses, state capture, and high-level corruption, and provide more consistent support to civil society organizations in the effort to monitor fraud and money laundering. We suggest to further develop and implement measures addressing the massive propaganda in the EP region. You know, and you have seen examples in the EP countries how propaganda is influencing backsliding in various EP countries. So we need to stay strong on these issues and to continue to provide the support to EU Stratcom East and projects and programs enhancing media literacy, media freedom and security for journalists. We urge the EU and the EU member states to demand from the Russian Federation to immediately release all the remaining Ukrainian political prisoners and stop the politically motivated persecution of Crimean Tatars and civic activists. We urge the EU to make joint efforts for reaching stability and security in the EP region through enhanced security cooperation with partner countries, supporting mediation and settlement of all ongoing conflicts. And we encourage the EU to send a strong and clear message to the EP countries endorsing and encouraging the creation of a single European gas market connecting the EU and the three EP countries with the AA. When we talk about visibility of the EU in our countries, we should understand that nobody should be left behind, and we need to reach to all the citizens in the EP countries in order to deliver the message on the EU support which is offered to the EP countries in implementing the EP agenda. We expect the results of the structured consultations on the EEP to become an integral part of the new cooperation framework with the EEP region. We've seen those more than 200 contributions, and we really urge the EU to take them into account. We assert the EU and the EU member states should further empower the civil society and the representatives of the forum by facilitating their participation in high-level meetings in full, including senior official meetings, and we suggest that the EU makes the support to enabling environment for civil society a top priority by lending it and it's a statement denouncing human rights violations and failure to respect the rule of law, firm and consistent political support, and thereby strengthening and further legitimizing their demands. Last but not least, we also support the trio which is discussed on the margins of the new upcoming EAP summit, and we want it to be structured in such a way not to jeopardize the multilateral architecture of the EAP initiative. So everybody is taking into account, and the three countries which signed the association agreement deliver more, and the other three countries are learning from the experience of implementing the association agenda. So we as civil society organizations and the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum proved to be a devoted partner in implementing the EU core values and reforms in the EEP region. And we represent 1,000 organizations in the EEP countries as well as in the EU member states. And we would like to assure you that we will continue to stay on barricades and help the others see the light at the end of the tunnel and take a risk upon ourselves in order to protect the fragile democracy in our countries. So we are thanking you very much for the support. And we are hoping that in the future, we will be able to maintain this very important dialogue. As it was said before, conversation and discussion is very important in landing the EU reforms and the EU core values, which are rule of law, good governance, and human rights, and for which we stand for. So thank you very much, and wishing us best of luck.
Thank you very much for your speech, and now we have time for addresses by the heads of delegations, and I would like to give the floor for Ms. Gayana Abrahamian, the head of Armenian delegation. Mrs. Abrahamian, the floor is yours, please.
Honorary Vice Speaker, distinguished guests, honorary co-chairs, for us, Euronest is considered to be one of the most comprehensive forums aimed at discussions issues of all important spheres. Being an integral part of the European civilization and system of values, Armenia continues to deepen its cooperation with the European Union, with the EU member states. Political dialogue, support of Armenian democratic reforms and state structures, as well as sectoral cooperation, play an important role in cooperation emerging from the comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement with the European Union. Armenia's specific contribution to the success of Eastern Partnership, that is the most recent and most promising development. This contribution stems from the success of Armenia's Velvet Revolution last year, which as an important victory and of peaceful change stands out as an affirmation of European values and ideals. It was a revolution merely about the human rights, merely about the democracy, about the anti-corruption and for fundamental rights. Armenia remains committed to ensuring appropriate conditions aimed at strengthening relations with Europe, meanwhile expecting European support to empower the ongoing reforms and sustainability of democratic institutions. Armenia also expects more from the EU and Eastern Partnership in pursuing a comprehensive approach to security, including the necessity for a value-based policy of engagement in support, peace, security, and stability in our region. The sustained support to the essential rights of self-determination for the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. I would like to emphasize two things in this regard. Azerbaijan threats to existence of Nagorno-Karabakh people and Armenia's Artsak's adherence to the peaceful solution of the conflict. EU and Eastern Partnership symbolized the adherence to fundamental rights and democratic universal values, namely the ones that guarantee the human dignity and right to life for everyone. In this regard, today I would like to take the opportunity in this forum to address an issue of a vital importance. Dear colleagues, as we know, December 9, today, is the day of United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide. For Armenians, the historic memory is not only the responsibility of commemorating 1.5 million people victims of Armenian genocide in 1915 in Ottoman Empire. We are committed as well to share the moral and legal obligation of the international community aimed at prevention the crimes against humanity. Through the adoption of the convention, the international community has taken on the moral and legal responsibility to prevent the recurrence of the crimes against the humanity. Since then, we have repeatedly voiced never again, but the genocides, crimes hasn't stopped. The tendencies of extremism, discrimination and hatred in some countries, even in state levels, cause existential challenges and are able to shake the international agenda. We consider the preventive policy to be one of our international commitments. We stay resolute and will continue to make efforts aimed at prevention of a new genocides. Dear colleagues, as a conclusion, I suggest now for a minute of silence to pay tribute in memory of the victims of all genocides in the world, and never again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Abrahamian, and I would like to give the floor for Mr. Muntenu, the head of Moldovan delegation.
Уважаемые представители Президиума, предлагаем минутой молчания.
Yes. Sorry. So we have 1 minute for silence for all victims of genocides. Thank you. Mr. Muntenu, the floor is yours.
Dear Mr. Co-Chair, Vice President, distinguished guests, participants to the Euronest, distinguished leaders of the civil society organizations attending this session, we shall all recognize that Euronest reunions represent a splendid opportunity for all of us to symbolically reunite in Tbilisi and the principles that we all share with the European Union and the rule of law, freedoms and liberties. We move towards the European Union by right steps, but also by some mistakes, by transposing laws, but also putting more efforts in order to create deliverables to our citizens. Shared values and aspirations create the mental roadmap for our domestic political actions and efforts. It is obvious that this will not happen overnight, and we therefore have to see what we are doing today in a historical perspective. let me say that we all should feel a sense of solidarity with those who fought against totalitarianism 30 years ago. With the fall of the Berlin Wall, the freedoms have been reversed, and the freedoms came to Eastern Europe and to the Central Europe. There are so many other walls which need to be teared down and replaced with bridges of communication with citizens, with cultural projects charming citizens, with projects that will engage our economies and institutions. But the reunification with Europe is not yet completed as long as perspectives of accession to the European Union will remain a distant scope, not a proposition, as long as hybrid wars will continue to erode our borders and dysfunctional economies will force out citizens of our countries to leave their homes, as long as doctors will be kidnapped in the occupied territories. Let us renew our commitment to the citizens we represent and to the ideals we all believe in. Our citizens expect our countries will become indispensable to the European Union, as most of Central European countries and Eastern European countries have become through expansion, through enlargements. This means the real transformation in our countries. This is what we mean by enlargement. Let's live up to the aspirations of all citizens that trust Europe, and let's make Europe in our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor for Mr. Rasim Musabayev from Azerbaijan delegation.
Thank you very much, dear Co-President and Madam Vice President. Actually, I want to thank especially to you because we exactly share the same value and a very nice speech for today also. I want to, dear colleagues, to thank to everybody for remembering the victims of genocide, especially the genocide of Khojaly that carried out by Armenia. I want to thank to you for this one also. So during the last days, we had a very fruitful discussions, especially in the committees, that I think that the topics that we discussed and the reports that we drafted and the future topics that we planned will be very fruitful for everyone, especially for the member of the countries and the Eastern Partnership countries also. Because we believe that in Azerbaijan, every our meetings, every documents is carrying out approximation and the position of the countries and will strengthen the integration process and the level of the integration also. When we discussed the energy security, as you know, that I want to remind, in the last week, it was the historical days for the energy security for the European Union, because the last weeks, it was the opening ceremony of the TANAP project in the Turkey. You know, the TANAP is the main part of the South Gas Corridor that delivering the gas from the Caspian Sea to the European Union. So we hope that starting from the next year, Azerbaijan gas will be delivering to European Union consumers, and it will be to meet the demands of the European third energy package. That's the Azerbaijan contribution to everybody. I want to declare that starting for that day, Azerbaijan is strengthening integration not only with the European Union, but within the Eastern Partnership countries also, especially with Georgia, with Ukraine, and with Moldova also. During the last years, Azerbaijan foreign trade volume with the European Union and with all of the countries' Eastern Partnership members, except for the Armenia, increase it time by time. And we think that this partnership, especially this platform, is very useful for everybody. On behalf of Azerbaijan, I want to declare that we support the Georgian statement regarding the Dr. Vassilis that was abducted in the Trim Valley region. We think that the people should not be arrested within the territories that in the frame of the territories that recognized by international law and the community. But I was to remind that the same situation we have in Azerbaijan. 5 years ago, 2 Azeri people was taken hostage in Nagorno-Karabakh by Armenian forces, despite of the numerous apply of Azerbaijan. Especially we applied officially to the Prime Minister Armenia also, but we couldn't reach the release of these 2 people from the Nagorno-Karabakh. So I want just to ask you support the same station, but I want to underline that if we could achieve the release of these 2 people from the Armenian forces release, today we would not meet the same problem in the Georgia-Tskhinvali region also. At the end, I want to remind that the main challenges, Mr. Dobrev, that Mrs. Dobrev, you just indicated here from the integration process is the protracted conflicts. And we think about it that without resolving any protracted conflicts, we cannot achieve the main valuable integration process. Even I want to remind that these conflicts one day can destroy everything that we are trying to build now and in the future also. That's why I think that we have to focus on the conflicts. But at the end, I want to end with the positive notes that we think that Azerbaijan, the Eastern Partnership platform is the best way and the best platforms to solve such the different types of the views and to reach the approximation, the position of the countries and to reach the high level of the integration, to share the values, to contribute actually the positions that we have everything in the different ways. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. And I would like to thank you for all speakers. We finished our welcome addresses and speeches. So now we have very short break to take the family photo. Just 10 minutes outside the building. Please follow us for a family photo. Thank you.